Welcome back, friends, to the Cadaver Club. I'm Ben. Today, I'm going to review Hail Night, 1981. So classic. Directed by Tom DeSimone and starring Peter Barton, who you will know from Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, as well as the legendary Linda Blair. This movie is super nostalgic for me because it was one of the first horror movies I ever saw, and it scared the holy bejesus out of me. In fact, the first time I watched it, I was at my friend's slumber party in like 3rd grade or something, and I couldn't even watch it. It was too scary for me. So flash forward a few years later and it's on television and I'm like, I'm making it through this fucking movie. And I did. I watched the whole thing and it was still scary, but I turned down the sound and it was a little less scary. Anyway, this movie's great, guys. It's like so early 80s, it's awesome. The soundtrack is amazing. There's a song in the very beginning, it's like the Hell Night thing is what it's called. And it is just like straight up early 80s new wave. So good. And then the rest of the score is pretty creepy, I thought. The synopsis is a group of pledges, fraternity and sorority, have to go through this rite of passage, which is staying the night in Garth Manor.
In order to be a member of Alpha Sigma Rho, one has to do what? Mr. Reed?
To stay in Garth Manor one night.
But Garth Manor has a scary story attached to it. The patriarch of the family and the matriarch tried to have a bunch of kids. They all ended up being deformed.
Now, Raymond Garth lived isolated in this house for 14 years with this freak show until he couldn't stand it anymore. 12 years ago, he assembled the entire family in the parlor. And then he took his dear wife, Lillian, and he strangled her to death. Then he took the mongoloid son, Morris, and he bashed out what little brains he had with the fireplace poker. Then he took the deformed little Suzanne and he impaled her with the same poker. Then he took the deaf, dumb, and blind little Margaret and he slit her throat. And then Raymond Garth got a rope and hung himself to death. Ooh. Leaving the cruelest punishment of all to his 14-year-old gorked-out son, Andrew, who was forced to witness the slaughter of his entire family.
When the police arrived, they never found Andrew. And some say to this day, he is roaming the halls of Garth Manor. So, that's this general setup. So the fraternity people, while all this is happening, have like rigged up the place to be all scary and stuff, and they're pulling pranks on them. And things don't go quite as they hoped they would. I'll just leave it there until I get into spoilers. So this movie has a really good score. I thought this was like, when I finally was able to watch this the second time all the way through, I had to turn down the volume because the score was so scary for me. And so I think the score is good. Linda Blair plays a mechanic too. That comes into play. Yeah, so basically they get locked in to Garth Manor and they put a padlock on the door and they hand them a gun and they say the only way you can escape Garth Manor before sunrise is to blow the lock off with the gun. You can't climb the fence because there's spikes on top and you might cut your nutsack off. I think that was a direct quote.
You might cut your nuts off.
What can I say? Yes, watch this movie. I don't really have a rating system. Someday I'll review a horror movie that I don't like, but for now I'm just getting started, man. Those are classics. I mean, Castle Freak and now Hell Night, come on. Yeah, so definitely check out Hell Night, and now I think I'm gonna just get right into some spoilers. Check out this dope ass little spoiler warning I made. It turns out he was dead the whole time.
Motherfucker!
So let's get into it. I like this movie. I like the setup because in the beginning, there's all this exposition by the main fraternity king. I don't know what they're called. President, I guess, maybe, of the chapter. Anyway, he's like the head honcho who's leading all the pledges in. And he's got all this exposition. He tells a spooky story. So it's kind of a nice little mechanism to get you to know the story of Garth Manor as well. But the problem is it's not reliable because at a point later on in the movie, there turns out to be two gorked out kids. And then in the commentary, the Scream Factory Collector's Edition commentary with Linda Blair and the director, they say, oh yeah, well, remember, you know, there was two brothers. And the problem is that they explicitly say that the first son was the first one to get killed by the father.
Then he took the Mongoloid son, Morris, and he bashed out what little brains he had with the fireplace poker.
So, like, I don't know, it feels kind of cheap. Because it is a good scare at one point. Seth, is that his name? Shit. Yeah, at one point, the blonde surfer dude is able to get over the fence without cutting his nutsack off and goes to the cops, and then he comes back. They won't believe him. He comes back and he stole a gun from the cop station. And so when he gets there, he gets attacked by some gorked out motherfucker. And that gorked out guy gets shot to death by him. So he runs into the Garth Manor and he's like, hey guys, I totally killed him. Like, smooth sailing here on out. We're safe as fuck. But then he gets grabbed on the head. And it's a good scare. It is a good scare. There's like a little sound of scuffle, and then a gun goes off, and then it slides out into this slice of light that is, it's a cool scene. It's framed nice, and it's a good scare. The problem is there shouldn't have been two brothers because they either got it wrong, in which case their mechanism for the exposition was garbage, or what actually happened was the producers were like, oh, we need more scares, we need something more. This is what the writer says in the little interview he gives. So they introduced the second son, but the problem is it just doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. So that's really my only big critique of this. As far as the rest of it goes, there's not super great special effects. It's not a real gory type of movie. There's a decapitation, which looks pretty good, and then there's a severed head, which, you know, post decapitation, which also looks pretty good. The main gorked out Andrew, his makeup really sort of strikes me more like theatrical, like you might see in a play. It's not super great, but he is a big, gangly, scary motherfucker who, like, yeah, he's pretty scary. So there's a couple good, real good, creepy scenes. Like, there's one where Linda Blair and Peter Barton are sitting there talking to each other, going like, oh, you know, are we safe, blah, blah, blah. And the whole time in sort of the background, there's like the carpet starts lifting very slowly, and then you see it's like a human form under there, and it's slowly creeping up. It was done pretty well. I thought it was kind of scary. And then there's another shot of Andrew, like, sort of like mad creature clawing his way through the underground tunnels of Garth Manor, which also I thought was pretty scary visually. Yeah, this movie's just awesome. It's just amazing, guys. 1981, come on. Doesn't get much better. Yeah, watch it. Have you seen it? What'd you think? Was it too scary for you the first time, guys? Did you have to wait a couple years to revisit it? I know I did. Yeah, let me know what you thought. Also, what was the first horror movie you saw? Can you remember? I don't know if I got it all. Did I get it all? Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Tell your friends, like, subscribe, join the Cadaver Club. And bye-bye.